Hello. Welcome to Why Not Both, the podcast all about how our multiple passions and interests shape our identity and our lives. My name is Pam Schaefer, and I am a musician and therapist in Los Angeles, and I also happen to be your host. This podcast is produced by Laura Studeris, and for this season, we've partnered up with Under the Radar magazine. If you like what you hear, you can hang out with us on social media. We are on Twitter and Instagram at WNB the podcast. And if you really, really like what you hear, please support us on Patreon. We are under Why Not Both podcast. When you join our Patreon, you get a whole bunch of really cool behind the scenes stuff and you get to chat with us. And that's pretty awesome. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope you enjoy our interviews. For this episode, we got to interview Shamir all about his amazing music, as well as art direction, as well as like literally everything else. I hope you enjoy our talk. Welcome to Why Not Both in the Panda Express. Oh, goodness.
Well, thank you for being able to do this now.
Oh my gosh, of course, of course. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you had your full hour because I was like, you're awesome. I wanted to make sure to talk to you. I love the new song. I was just like, I was wondering how you managed. Yes. I was wondering how you managed to time it perfectly, that there was like a snowstorm, a light snowstorm, like it was just enough snow to film. I was like, how did you do that?
Okay, you said snowstorm. I thought you were gonna say planet with something else. That seemed to have happened that same week. No snow. See, that's nice. That's wholesome. So I just happened to be in Tahoe. That's where I knew I was gonna film the video in Tahoe. Although the first day we got there, which is when I kind of did like the forest nymph look, where there isn't snow and it's just kind of just like greenery. That was the first day we got there and it didn't snow. So I was like, oh my God, are we not going to get a snow scene? And then the next day it snowed. So I was like, okay, we got everything we want. The like weather was on our side.
Oh my God, that's so funny. The last time I went up to Tahoe, it did the same thing where like, so low key, I've never been skiing in my life. And I went up to my friends where they had grown up there and he was going to teach me how to ski. And like the whole week I was there was absolutely no snow. And then the day that I left, it snowed like right as I was leaving. I was like, maybe that's a sign. Maybe that's a sign that I just shouldn't ever ski.
Yeah.
Like, it was trying to save me.
That's it. I mean, I want to do it one day, but it's just like so many people get hurt or die. And it's really tricky. Like it seems like a like whatever foo-foo ass sport, that like rich people do, but it's incredibly dangerous though.
I mean, when you think about it, you're basically flying down a hill on like a very narrow piece of wood at high speeds. Like that seems slightly unhinged. In snow, there's trees around you. Could you run into them? I would.
Yeah, and I could barely walk in a straight line, so.
Because you're on the East Coast right now, aren't you?
So yeah, I'm on the East Coast. So basically when I did the video, I went to Nevada for like 2 months. And then, me and my friend and her sister, we all got tested and just did a road trip up to Tahoe. And and obviously we can do anything because the Panny and, Tahoe is like on the edge of like California.
Yes.
And this is right when the California lockdown started.
Oh no.
So there was really nothing to do. So we just like went to Trader Joe's in Carson City, got a bunch of food, and we just stayed inside our Airbnb and shot the video around like all like the forest area. I was just like in back of like where we were staying. Like we never left the house.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's been very strange making art during this time because in some ways, I don't know about you, but I like limitations sometimes in making art. Yeah. Otherwise my brain's like, but I could do everything. And so it's kind of nice to be like, no, you have these constraints.
That's always been my strength, is like doing the most with less. So in a weird way, yeah, this is kind of like me in my element.
Yes. Yeah, because you've got a lot more stuff coming out, right?
I mean, not a lot. I mean, I have a few things coming out in the next like couple months, but I am started working on the next record, but I don't think that will be out until like next year. So
I like how my brain's like literally working on anything right now. Like in my mind, I'm like, that's a lot. Like you're
I
getting
mean, it is though,
that's
because
amazing.
you're still doing it. You know what I mean? And it's still like a thing. Like I mean, like it's just I at this point in my life and in my career where not only am I independent, but I'm also like self-managed and just like, you know, it feels like I am doing something at all times, even when I am kind of in between kind of like major things, like maybe
Yeah.
like album rollouts or like major projects and everything, but it's still like in between those times that you're never not doing anything. And then on top of that, like I'm also like trying to like finish a a sweater because I like knit.
Oh my
So
God.
it's just like I feel like I'm never not doing anything, and like my goal is to like try to like find any pocket that I can to like literally just like become this.
Oh, well, because yeah, like I was looking up all the other things that you did, and I mean, that's basically what the podcast is about like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you juggle doing a bunch of things? And it sounds
Mm-hmm.
like you're like, I just do all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and like not, and I'm not necessarily like a type A ambitious person. You know what I mean? Like I'm not that, a go getter. Like
right.
that's not me. But it's like I am a very creative person that have found like a lot of ways to like put that to use.
Mhm.
And when I'm being creative, like I have a high tolerance for doing creative things, right? Like I don't get burnt out doing creative things. Like so I'm able to like do a lot of creative things, which is great because, for the last almost decade of my life, I've survived completely off of like doing creative things. So that it's kind of like a blessing that, I don't get too burnt out from doing creative things.
That's phenomenal. It also
Yeah.
sounds like when you're doing one thing, if you do like, not like hit a wall, but it's like if you feel like something is moving and something else isn't, you can always go towards the thing that's moving.
Yeah, but then also to me, like that sounds like a little like workaholish, right? And it's more like it's like less like, I need to go to like every, from one thing that's moving to the next thing that's moving. It's more so that because like I can be creative by myself, right? Like I write all my songs by myself, generally play everything by myself on the records. And I write all the time. But I think it's less going from one thing to like the next thing to like realizing, and this is something I realized just within like the last like year or two, or maybe even three, like the last like couple years after kind of like dating an artist. I dated a sculptor. And I don't know, I kind of like before that didn't really see myself as like an artist. Like obviously I think musicians are artists and I think that's like definitely art, like no doubt. But I didn't realize like I didn't realize how much I was kind of like bogging kind of like down the other like artistic mediums and things that are like
Mm.
within me for the sake of like solely holding the identity of being like the musician. You know what I mean? And
Oh.
like I've always painted and I've always been into film and I've always like done all these things, right? And but to me, I just never took it seriously. I was just like, oh, that's just something that I just do. You know what I mean? Like it's just like a whatever. Like it's like a bullshit. Even though I took them just as seriously as like anything else. So I think after kind of like getting a peek into the art world and seeing that like, oh, like I don't operate too differently from these people. So
Mhm.
I can start taking my things outside of like music seriously. And so that's when, you know, um, I love like art directing for the artists on my label. Like
Mhm.
that's my favorite thing about the label is that I get to like style and like art direct like my artists. Like the last record release, which was for Great Pavel, like I styled and art directed the whole like cover shoot and like the
Mhm.
singles and like everything and the press photos and like everything. And like that's like fun for me. And it doesn't feel like work, you know what I mean? And it's just like flexing and like perfecting just another like aspect of like my creativity and like myself as an artist. But also because of the pandemic, as we mentioned earlier, it's pushed us in like different ways than like we
Yeah.
never would have, right? And I knew, just like I said, I liked film and like that was something that I was into, but I would not have never started making my own videos if it wasn't for the pandemic. Like it was for myself and like in at least in this way. And
Yes.
like now it's like second nature. And now that I've like done like my third, self self everything,
Mhm.
video, like on my own, I did completely by myself. I wonder I did completely by myself, like in quarantine. And
Mhm.
like, luckily I got like a little help from my friend Christina during, because we were both in Tahoe. And
Mhm.
like, that was like nice because then I didn't have to like use my teddy bears as like a stand in. But but yeah, but I still like, do everything myself, set up the camera, like blah blah blah, edit all of that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think kind of being one artist and seeing that, but then also having the pandemic kind of be like the extra push. It's like less me and more just like me just following my muse, you know what I mean?
Mhm. That sounds empowering also to like allow yourself to step into those roles because I felt that similar thing that you described where as a musician you're like, okay, so I take being a musician in a way seriously or in a way as like how you're defining your identity. And then you're
Mhm.
like, wait, I'm all these other things too.
Mhm.
Like, hold up.
And I think additionally so, it can be toxic to kind of like take on the identity of the musician, right? Like
Yeah.
I've seen it's like so many situations where like, because I never took on the identity of musician like so seriously. Like I'd never taken myself that seriously as a musician, and I find that to be a blessing. And but there's like so many like musicians who like just completely take on that as like their identity. And when there comes a point in time where simply maybe you can't do music, whether just it's not, accessible where you are at the moment, or, you have a bit of writer's block or whatever, that might be the situation why you can't make music right now. These are to kind of also have a personal, identity crisis around it as well. And I've seen that with a
Yeah.
couple of like my musician friends who kind of take on that identity a little too much. And one thing I always tell them is that you have to you have to find you can't just be the musician. Like you have to be you first, and you have to be a well-rounded, multifaceted person. Like I'm sorry that you were able to skate by that long, and like realistically, like let's be real, it's usually like the cis het people who are able to
Yes.
like skate by that long. You know what I mean? Because like no matter what circles I'm in, you think I'm seen as a musician first? No, I'm seen about as like 50 other different things before like they find out, musicians might run on a list. They find out I'm a musician and then it's like, oh, that changes things. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
even if I wanted to just identify as just a musician, like society won't let me, So
Yep. Yep. I am so glad that you said that. Yeah, it almost in my brain it went to the analogy of like people who were somehow considered attractive, like in high school, and then
mhm.
like that becomes their thing, and they could coast on that for a long time, and then all of a sudden, like you're not 15 and hot.
Yeah.
Like, wait a second.
Like life
No.
kind of got to you a little bit. Like life was like, hello,
Yes.
what's up? So this is going to end. Hope you enjoyed your time. Now you
Exactly.
have to get a real personality.
Yeah, it does strike me that you might have realized based on my statement of that I was not one of the people who was hot for
Yeah.
15.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think most successful people who have like their own thing going was not, well, the funny thing is I was relatively popular in high school, but like for being weird. Like I think it was slightly sympathetical, and then also part that like I dress really well, and so I got best dressed.
Excellent.
Um, and but like still, still people were like me. You know what I mean? Like it was a really weird dichotomy of just like being popular, but like, at the end of the day, I'm still black and queer and they're still gonna fucking bully me. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. People are like, we respect you, or do we?
Yeah, or do yes, exactly. So that was like very weird. But yeah, for the most part, the people who were popular then are, well, generally, but for the most part, are doing as well, and I think it's because we got a lot of like those worldly, social adversity skills out the way early on. And I think, when you've just been validated for so long and you get into the real world where there's absolutely no validation, not even a little bit. It's just like no validation. You have to like be your own cheerleader. And it's just like, I can see that being hard for someone.
Yes, yes. And also, you mentioned obviously in society that people define you before you could define yourself sometimes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that is something that some people do not encounter really.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, for sure.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. It's this white man. And,
You said it. You said it. So
yeah.
for
And
the record, let the record show that I didn't say it. Shamir Bailey did not say it. So
it was me. It was me. Why am I like this? But yeah, and I found that, I don't know if you had this experience, but in some ways, that made me discover bits of my own identity later, like stepping into my identity as, say, a music producer as opposed to a musician. Like, I don't know if you encountered that for a while. I had this like block against calling myself that, despite the fact that I was recording and engineering my music. Like, you would
yeah,
think that like that would click in my brain, but no, it did not for a while.
especially in the music world where like that side of music is so like gate kept by the what
They
usually
just don't
straight,
have to
usually
name.
cis white men.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just like seen as like their job, right? Like, you be cute, you be the muse, you write your little songs, and we'll make them sound good.
Yes.
And yeah, and I definitely, felt a bit of that too. Like, so much, like the cishet white man who produced my first record, like made sure to like implement him so much and ingrain himself so much into my origin story,
Hmm.
that he even had like convinced himself that I couldn't make music without him, right? Which
Wow.
is insane, and here I am 7 records later.
I'm like,
6 of which I self-produced, like, so yeah, it's that to me is just like deeper than even like your own personal, like, yes, that definitely plays part, like, your own personal battles with like, with finding the confidence to like be like, yes, I am a producer, or I am that, or like I am that. But then also like, at least within music, it is that like, very fucked up gatekeeping of like, yeah, just like non cis white male producers. It's just like labels won't even recommend them. You know what I mean?
yeah, like, and it's so strange to me because a lot of times when I'm listening to music and I'm really enjoying it, one, I enjoy obviously like listening to the writing and the songs, but I'm always curious, like, oh, who did the production work? And I'm always really excited when artists are doing their own production work because then I'm like, oh, cool. Like, now I know like what your style is across the board, like your writing, your production, this, that, and the other thing. And like, it really baffles me when people ask me like, oh, well, who produced it? And I'm like, well, you can see I said that I produced it. And it's weird that people would assume that I am not the one who produced it, that it's,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you might have written it, but like who played the instruments and who produced it? I'm like, hmm. I'm like, do other people not just like Google and discover like
That part too, which I also realized is like, a music nerd thing. Like I know it's me and my other like music nerd friends. It's like, oh, let's look up the credits. That's so
Uh,
fun to me. Like that's the shit.
like, I'm like, you're right. I think that that might be a music nerd thing because I'm like, you don't look up like who does everything on the songs that you
You
like.
know, I mean, people don't ever buy physicals anymore. Like, come on.
That's true.
You
I'm
know, 1-800, come on now. Like,
like, I'm old
he,
and nerdy.
yeah, that's the thing. We're all the dirty because, like, yeah, that's what we do. We'll like put on the record, we'll listen to it, we'll look at the credits. You know, at least during that time for me, you know, I'll go down the Wikipedia hole,
Yup.
go, you know, go look down the credits, figure, you know, no, you know, find out all that stuff, and then and I still do that, and it's like, and then like I'll do that for like certain like records that I like miss when I'm like younger, and
Yeah.
then like I'll hurt myself because I'm like, why did Dr. Luke fucking produce all of these great songs? Like you can't escape them. This is fucked up.
I just had a full body cringe. Like,
Yeah.
yes. It's something that I wrestle with when you're like, a horrible person made art that I like, and now I can't listen to that art because it was made by a horrible person, and now I'm made aware of it, and now it's ruined.
It's past that. It's like he formed who I am. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
his production credit is just so unnecessarily fucking fat. And then it's just like and then the industry is just like, yeah, let's just like completely put all of what we have behind this single shitty white man.
yep, yep.
It's crazy to me. They like gave no other opportunities to anyone else. Like he wrote like every fucking number one of like the last fucking decade. For what? For what?
Yep. Yep. And didn't they recently, like, he is releasing music, like he is producing, but like they changed his name and thought that like somehow no one would notice, see
No,
previews
he's still
about
out there in
Google.
these streets. I mean, Say
Oh.
So by Doja Cat. That's still him. Like number one. So yeah, it sucks.
I don't know what to say other than making like a slowly deflated sound,
That's how I
apparently.
feel. That's how I feel, you know? Like,
God.
yeah.
I mean, all the more reason why we should be out here making more music, frankly.
And also just uplift non-cis white male producers. Like there's so much more now. Like there are so many just like especially now, like there's so many like weird kids who like fucking get Ableton and like learn how to make beautiful music over a summer. Like there's no reason why there aren't more like diversity within like producers. It's just no reason, you know. And like there's definitely like a few like Wonder Girl is like obviously amazing and like she's doing her thing and you know, but there still needs to be more. There still needs to be more.
Well, and what you said is really important to recommend them to people because I
Yeah.
feel like I work with a female vocal engineer and producer who I really, 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 really love, and I recommend her to everybody
Yeah.
because I'm like, one, she's awesome and I love her. Two, I know how important it is when another musician says like, "Hey, I worked with this person, they were great." Um, that's the way someone's going to get more jobs. It's like if you've worked with like a female engineer, a female producer, non-binary engineer, like recommend those people, tell other people about them.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
of course. And like that's what gets so frustrating for me about like it's not a confidence thing of like me not wanting to call myself a producer. Even though I can't, I don't call myself a producer, but I'm like, I can't produce. You know what I mean? Because it goes back to like what I said at the beginning, like I'm a person who could do a lot with less.
mhm.
And I think a great producer could do anything with any means, you know what I mean? And I definitely like it's just you're not gonna get anything that resembles maximalism out of me, you know what I mean? And and I think, you know, a great producer is someone that you can recommend. I wouldn't recommend myself. Like I know that sounds like messed up and like dark and like hopefully eventually like I'll get there, you know, and I'm sure and sometimes I get people who like recommend me for like certain things and I'm just like, look, I gotta be straight up. Like this is what I can do. You know, if you like wanna like, you know, mess around, if you want and you are a person who could find beauty and imperfection, you know, then I'm your person, you know what I mean? Like but yeah, but I have produced things, you know, like I produced 2 records on my label, you know, one of which just got the artist signed to a bigger label. So, you know, I like, oh, I have like a resume now. Like I have things, you know, like I was even like on Netflix scene producing, you know, but it's still so weird that like it's still hard for me to like call myself that just because I like the technical aspects of like things and hope to get there eventually, you know.
Well, and it sounds like you've also found kind of your voice in it, where like you said, you're like, if you like this kind of style, if you like this aesthetic, like I'm your person. Um,
Yeah,
which like I appreciate that about producers because producers do have their own kind of stamp that they put on songs in a way.
for
And
sure.
so it's okay that you're like not a I don't know what to call it. My brain just said jack of all trades and I'm like, is it like 1940? Why did that phrase pop in my head?
That's the phrase, you know.
Like,
Well, you know, I think I look at it this way, right? Like, you know, not everyone is like a Rick Rubin who can like do literal everything. You
yeah.
know, like some people kind of just like have their thing that like people want. And I think that's like cool as well. But I guess like also like my thing is like we could do a lot with less. And but how it will turn out, we gotta wait and see. You know, like how it is sound, I don't know, but it sound like something, you know. I'll make sure it will make ears bleed, you know what I mean? And I don't know if that's a good tagline just yet.
I really like the chaotic good aspect of that.
Yeah. Well, that's how I got like that's how I ended up. That was kind of like how I decided to go full force with like my label because like the first record that I produced for the label it was the first EP for Grant, who was also the
Mhm.
last release of the label for his debut record, which he
Mhm.
ended up just self-producing. But I produced his first EP and like it was just like literally from a Facebook ad where well a Facebook post. I
Mhm.
didn't like actually put out actual like ad and like paid for like at the
Right.
circle wait. I was just asking my friends. It was just like, yo, like I made, you know, 2 decent records with this like 4 track that
Uh-huh.
I like love. Duty was like what a 4 track recorded, like lo-fi records slash demos, like hit me up. And like he hit me up and honestly like that EP is like one of like my favorite things and like definitely one of the best things I've ever done because it's also like the first time that not only did I like produce something but also like mixed it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um but yeah, even just like me putting myself out there, I was like, listen, I got a 4 track. So if that's fine with you, then I'm your person. We could do something cute and lo-fi.
See, and it's amazing hearing you say this because I have seen so many cis white dudes, on the other hand, post things like, I have a 4 track. I'm your man. It's like this audacity and this confidence
Well, of
on
course,
the
because
flip
they
side.
invented Audacity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
like I'm like I'm like it sounds like you have all the equipment and all of the good intentions and all of the that and like whereas like these dudes are just like they think they've got it made that they've got this and I'm just like oh my god like because you're like oh it's just me with a 4 track and I'm like yeah it sounds like you made something amazing with a 4 track like
yeah, and like, and also, I think also to like those kind of like dudes with like audacity too, like, or at least with that level of audacity, it's like, you know, they're also like inexperienced, and I think I'm kind of like lucky to like have gotten experience first, like kind of been like immediately like thrown into experience
yeah
because like I, you know, when I got slingshot into this industry, your girl was not ready at all whatsoever. Like I was just out here like 19 and 20. It was just like smooth brain, sing song, dance on stage. Like that's all I was doing. You know what I mean? And like any time that I got any kind of like information and knowledge, I took notes. And then so you know, by the time I kind of like went out on my own, I
yeah
already had kind of like a full scope of like experience. And then I was able to kind of just like tailor my next steps to like what I already knew. You know what I mean? And so I'm definitely like blessed in like that sense to kind of like have that kind of like level of self-awareness because it's just like I already kind of like been in on like how things work, you know what I mean? So I can kind of like work backwards from there.
I was like nodding sagely. I was like, this checks out. I was curious. I was like, did that kind of inform why you started your own label and like why you're choosing to like it sounds amazing, by the way you described like art directing other people. I was like, oh my gosh, like having your eye on like I was just thinking about having your eye on like even like my art, like things like that. I was putting myself in the position of like if I had someone with your eye looking at my stuff, I'm like, oh my God, that would be such an honor. Like, I was like, because having a fine eye for detail, not one of my strengths. And so
and it wasn't mine for the longest, but then also I realized that it was because like I fully was like, I'm a musician, you know, like I'm the musician. Like I don't wanna, you know what I mean? And I think once, yeah, and I think I was able to kind of like apply that to myself later on. And I mean like literally like just from like this last record, because I had to do like my own like, you know, videos and like everything. So like I had to naturally apply it to myself. But even then, I kind of like used my artists as guinea pigs. Like I was like, I'm too scared to apply it to myself. Let me like start off with my artist first, which is like, I know that sounds fucked up, but like it turned out fine. Like it turned out fine. Like I wasn't gonna have them like, you know, messed up in these streets. But it is kind of easier to like do things when you're outside of yourself. You know what I mean?
that's exactly what came to mind, is that like I sometimes have difficulty. It's not even so much looking at the details, but it's difficulty seeing outside myself because
Yeah.
I'm inside myself. Like, like
sometimes there are more ways than one, and that's okay because we're in a pandemic. People are stressed.
And it's good for you. It produces oxytocin and dopamine. So
hurry it.
Amazing.
I was not ready for this to become as unhinged as it did. I'm so sorry.
That's like the story of my life.
Oh my God. Okay, get it together, Sham. I'm sorry.
I say that to myself in my head. My last name is Schaefer. And so when you started saying that and you said Sham instead of Schaefer, like you got really close to my internal monologue. Like I'm always like, get it together, Schaefer.
I mean, you know, oh God. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be serious. I really am, because this is
serious business. It's very serious business. I see we have reached the giggle loop portion of the podcast.
Keep it or cut it down, you know.
Oh my God. But yeah, when you're looking at another artist, like you can kind of experiment more, because in a way, like at least when I'm looking at someone else, like sometimes even if I'm writing and intending that song for someone else, I'm more willing to experiment because I'm in a way like less attached to it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that's with so many things, because it's just like all you have to do is just figure out the boundaries of like that artist. And I think it's so much more easier to like create boundaries for other people when it comes to us. But setting boundaries for ourselves is always a struggle, just like an internal struggle, you know what I mean? Because obviously there are certain places that we can go with ourselves, again, no pun intended, then, you know, we can go, then we allow with anyone else or anything else.
Yeah.
And so I also find that like, you know, like also another thing about like the artists on my label is that I really only work with like people that I'm like really close to, like people that I've known for like years. Like everyone that I've signed, with the exception of a new person that we're kind of like developing right now, I've known for years. And just like got to just like completely know their essence and like everything. So it's kind of just like I already like spend the time kind of like understanding their essence, their boundaries, like who they are. So it's like even less strenuous in that way, where it's just like I already, you know, kind of like know what could work for them and what doesn't work for them. And like there are definitely times where I do like get like a little bit more experimental and I have to be like, okay, hear me out. You know what I mean? But like for the most part, like, yeah, that's why I also like to work with people that I'm close to.
Yeah.
I do eventually like want to grow and like get to well, kind of like I kind of art direct and shot another artist that we're gonna like announce and release this year. And I only knew one of them, so they're a brother duo, and I only knew
Hmm.
one of the brothers for
Hmm.
6 years now. Not only did I not know his other brother, but like for the longest, I didn't even know he had. So I was like, oh, that's dope. Like, and so, and like I signed him as like a brother duo. And so, like, now I have to, like, get to know like this kind of like other brother, like,
Yes.
in a sham and like figure out, what he's comfortable with and like me dress him in and like a way that I could like make it cohesive and like everything. So, like, that was like definitely like a challenge, not a hard one. It was like fun because like they're both straight white dudes. Like, that's the thing about like straight dudes though is that they literally don't care. It's just like they're just like as long as we're clothed, it's like whatever. So that kind of made it a little bit easier, but it was like still kind of like, it was still more of a challenge than like it was in like previous times where I like had only worked with people that like I've known for years.
Yes. Yes. Because when you've known someone for that long, like I find at least when I'm collaborating, like I can see other things in them that they might not see. And conversely, they can see things in me that I might not have seen.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's why I think the role of art director, like, yes, you can do it for yourself. I did, by myself, but I think it's better and more potent when someone else does it. Like, I think as someone who's just like DIY till I die, I do think that's probably like one aspect where it's just like, it's definitely best when it's someone else.
Yeah. It's like I was thinking about that because also sometimes I've had people suggest things to me that I would have never thought of, but that I'm open to because I trust them. And
Mhm.
occasionally you try something and you're like, well, that went terribly. Oh well. But a lot of the time you're like, that went way better than I could have ever anticipated, and I would have never thought of going down that road.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then also it's just like the thing with like, um, you know, art direction in like a aesthetic way when it comes to like clothes and makeup and like everything. Like we typically shop to be comfortable. We typically shop for like everyday things and like, for the most part, when it comes to like shoots and like everything, like you're pulling things, like it's
Yeah.
not things that like you might typically wear or like, you might want to like get your makeup like professionally like done and like everything and blah blah blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, of course, that's like gonna be hard to just like do yourself. Like, how can you like imagine like sitting with yourself and be like, okay, I have to like pull clothes that
Yeah.
is different from my everyday clothes, but still comfortable to me and feel like it represents myself, but still flashy enough where it feels like special. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like nobody generally like thinks like that first and foremost. And like, as someone who has had to think like that for art directing my whole like last record, it's a little tiring.
It's
Like,
very tiring. Do you have, I call it the creative corner of my closet, and it literally is those clothes where it's like
mm-hmm.
I've like scouted clothes that are literally just like photo shoot clothes.
Yeah, or for like dress up.
Yeah, and like
Yeah,
occasionally I'll just dress up in them because it's fun.
yeah.
But like, but it's not stuff that I'd wear in like everyday life. Though I found in this panopticon, I have started sometimes wearing like just really festive, weird dresses with hoodies in my house, like because I can.
Honestly, that is
Like,
such, I always kind of love that look. Like gown and like hoodie. Like I've seen like that look in like a couple like kind of like maybe supermodels at the after party
yep.
or like, someone just getting home from the red carpet or like whatever. And it's just something so pure about that look to me. Because it's just like I can still feel fancy and also comfortable, you know what I mean?
That is
But
literally.
also, it's really great to hear that you have like your fun corner because like you're the only other person that I heard that also shops like that because yeah, that's like me. Like I'll buy something like this is crazy. I would never wear this. I want to buy it.
Yes. It's like, why do you have a floor length neon pink peignoir? Reason?
Like people definitely have like a formal corner of their closet, right? But like it's like not even necessarily formal. It's just like these
Right.
are like unique pieces that
Right.
might photograph well or like look cool and like something. So I'm just like gonna buy it and like keep it until like I don't need it. And it's like
Exactly.
that's so helpful.
Yes, that's the thing is like it's very rare that I've actually bought something that like, if something sits in my closet for years and I like don't wear it, I let it back into the world so it may enjoy
Yeah.
life with someone else. But for the most part, I find that like those weird finds have come in really handy for shoots. And also like Loki,
Mm-hmm.
I'm barely 5 feet tall. Um, and so
Mm-hmm.
like when I find something that fits me correctly, I'm like, yeah, you're coming home with me.
For sure. Yeah, no, you gotta, yeah. Like if I have a very typical body, like I'm 5'10". Um, so yeah, I can only imagine like if I had like maybe a more unique body and size, yeah, I would like buy literally everything that I feel like fit me well. You know what I
Oh yeah.
mean?
It must be really interesting sometimes styling other people because, like you said, I love that you brought up that you have to feel comfortable in the clothing. Because even though during shoots, like it is like a heightened version of you, I when I see people look uncomfortable in photos, it makes me like I don't know if I'm overly empathetic, but like it makes me feel kind of
Mhm.
bad.
Same,
Like,
same, really same.
yeah.
It's yeah, it's a balance. Like you can tell when someone looks uncomfortable, or you can tell like when someone's like putting on. And it's just like I don't want you to put on like when I'm like shooting or like whatever. Like I want you to look like as comfortable, like and as natural as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because then, like, I don't know, there's something about the expression because I like artists with all sorts of different visual expressions, but if someone looks uncomfortable, to me that pings that something is like either false or awkward in a way, and I'm like, oh no, are you
Mhm.
okay? Like,
Well, it's funny because like I think a lot of people who like now know what they know now about the origins of my career and like from where I was then and like where I am now.
mm,
Um, I've heard multiple accounts where people kind of like go back and like watch my on the regular video. And it's like, oh my God, it is so apparent that this is a deeply uncomfortable child. Like,
oh,
there was actually like a pitchfork like review of like one of like my post debut like records, like whatever, where it's just like now I go back and like watch stuff on the regular video and it's just like it's very apparent that he's like very much uncomfortable. And I'm like, I'd always looked uncomfortable to me. I was also deathly sick too during like the
oh,
day of like that shooting too. Like it's just like when people were like, ooh, colors and
oh my
effects.
God. Oh no. And that's so sad when you know that you were uncomfortable. There was a video I never released where like I wasn't comfortable during it and in the footage like I could see in my face that I wasn't comfortable and I didn't know if like anyone else could, but it like freaked me out that I was like I don't really want that. But I was also much older. I was not a kid. I was an adult that like was like okay, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. That's so sad though as a kid to be like, I guess this is what I'm supposed to be doing, question mark.
Yeah, question definitely very much question mark. And I think, people think that I have like such like a problem with the song and like that I hate it and like blah blah blah. And it's just like, do I like the song? No. Like it was like I would have never like thought that like I would not listen like I don't and I would have never like listened to the song even if it wasn't mine, just like on general purposes, you know what I mean? But also it was just like it seemed like everything was wrong with it to me up until it came out, and
Oh,
then everyone like ate it up, like, and that was just also just like it was very like psychotic and like in a way because it was just like I thought the song was bad. People liked it. I was like, hey, like whatever. they'll soon realize that this is a bad idea to release this first single or release a better second single, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that I not only look very much awkward in the video, but like I definitely was sick the second day of shooting, and like knew that like my energy levels were like low, and like I was just like, oh, I wonder how they like gonna piece this together, like make this look different. And like the video is definitely fun, like it's fun, it's colorful, the edits, all of that, like whatever. But I think I even like I'm dancing so stiff in it, and I remember just like getting the cut, and I was just like, I look so stiff. Like I don't know. And then it comes out like everyone like eats it up. So I think also in a weird way, it's like it's like we live in a world where aesthetic comes first. We live in like in a very like Instagram, TikTok type of world, right?
Right.
And I think another thing that I've learned from art directing and like everything is that you want to be as comfortable as possible, and I think that's the best way to like sell something to like make it feel like a little bit more approachable. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's really about the like specific aesthetic, and like at the end of the day, that's all like anyone is like going to care about, which is like so bleak and like dark. So I think also, with that being said, yes, you want to be comfortable, and like yes, it's good to be comfortable, but just like I mentioned before, and just like you said, that's why I think art direction is like better done by someone else, and not necessarily like the best thing to DIY, because like you there's just like it's just about the aesthetic at the end of the day, and like
Yep.
and like selling that aesthetic, and like definitely you want that aesthetic to like be a part of you and like everything. So that's also like why shopping like and styling is like so easy for me too, because like I look at patterns first. I don't
Mm-hmm.
look at like size and like fits and like everything. Like I kind of ask like for whoever I'm styling for, like general sizes and like everything.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it's all about the pattern and like the
Oh.
fit and everything. So like I got like a 3X like uh, button up from one of my artists, and he's not that size. And just throw out there because I said it like everyone knows who he is. I just want to put it out there. He's not that size,
Yep.
but it had a great pattern of
Yep.
like doggy paw on it. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, we're going to make this work. I think you can make any silhouette, any shape, anything work if you know how to, work around it. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, this is an aesthetically pleasing pattern. This is what's going to reach the people's eye before the shape, before how it's
Mhm.
styled, before who's even wearing it. You know what I mean? So
That's
that's
really
one thing I've kind
taking
of
them
like
from
learned from the dark, from the darkness of early videos of mine.
well, what you said about aesthetic, like it stuck out that you said that it does have to be a part of you though. Like you can't just like do an aesthetic that like doesn't resonate with you at all. It's almost like the way you're describing it, it sounds like an amplified part of yourself, where it's like taking a kernel of
Exactly.
something that is true to you, but like really emphasizing it so that it is eye-catching. Because you're right, like most people discover music now not because they've like heard the music, unless it like shows up on their Spotify and they're like, oh well, that's interesting. Most of the time they don't think that, unless see previous about music nerds going down Wikipedia holes. But it's
And
like,
like that's and
yeah.
like that's the thing about like even like those like the early videos, like I think I would even have been able to like got through the set had like the aesthetic not been like exactly or not exactly, but there's like something that's like completely not me, at the very least. Like at least they knew that like I like bright colors and
Yeah.
like I like dressing like an oversized toddler. Like that is my thing. That's my shit. Like I have pink and purple hair right now as we speak. So
Yay.
so like that was enough to like at least like get me on set, but would I have changed like the execution, would I have changed? Like, sure, maybe so, but it's just like I wouldn't even have been able to sell what I did sell had it not been some part of me in like some way, you know what I
Right.
mean? And it's like I wrote the song. Like it's not like I did write the song, like those were my words. Like we can't deny that. I did it, okay?
I like that you're like, now I'm the one taking accountability. It was me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's what I said. I always like accountability. I don't hate it. I can't hate something that I like made, you know what I mean? But like, we all know what it is. We all like everyone has made something, whether it's something as simple as food, as to like, a song that they just like thought was like stupid, but like you still made it. You know what I mean?
I made it.
Doesn't mean you have to like give it to people. Doesn't mean you have to give like this bad food to, you know what I mean? And like that's kind of just like how I felt. Like, like that's how I feel about it. And I think that's hard for like a lot of people it's hard for people to kind of look at it that way and kind of like comprehend it because of how successful it was. And
Yeah.
it's just like just because it's successful doesn't mean that like I'm not entitled to like feel that way about it. You know what I mean? And like I'm glad of the success. Like, listen, I make money. I like money. It's been nice paying my rent. That's fun.
We love this.
Yeah.
I feel like people are down on money, and it's like, no, money is like a medium of exchange, and it's about what you do with it.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's just like nice. I mean, listen, there has been way shittier ways of getting a passive income. And it's just like being able to have a passive income from a song that I thought was stupid that I wrote when I was like 19. It's like probably on the more ethical side of things that people, get passive incomes from. So
I completely agree. And also, like, knowing that song, like you said, you're like, you can make things and it is a part of you, but it's not the totality of you. You're like, yeah, I can make
exactly.
that. But that's not like all of who I am.
Very that, because again, just like I said, people are complex. We're multifaceted,
You're multifaceted beings. Just
You're
do
not
that.
just a musician,
Yes.
which goes back to what we're here for.
I feel like I'm just like, and like you have an idea and it's a like glowing ball of like, ah. Like you did such a good job of bringing it full circle to that moment.
Thank you. I'm also a writer, so.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of Why Not Both. If you liked what you heard, please make sure to like us and subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platform. You can also come hang out with us on social media. We are at WNB the podcast, both on Instagram and on Twitter. This season, we are brought to you by Under the Radar magazine. Under the Radar is a nationally distributed print, music, and entertainment magazine and website. You can find them at www.undertheradarmag.com and feel free to support them on Patreon. Extra special thanks to our producer, Laura Studeris, who is literally a rock star. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you next episode.